For anybody who is interested in having a say in our strategic planning, we have our new goal to fulfill 50% of market demand by 2040. And the board and staff are going to be holding meetings in districts coming up in March and April to talk about ways to achieve the goal and to get ideas from you, our members, on ways we can support you and ways to grow the industry, and just in general to get reaction to the goal and get your help to strategically plan how we should achieve it. So please check the Ontario Sheep Farmers website for your local district meeting time in March and April, and we look forward to seeing you. Now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flock Talk. I'm Erin Morgan.
And I'm Walker Ball, and we work for the members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers.
Today, we are joined by Jen and Chris Vervoort. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start off. Tell us about your farm.
Jen, you want to go?
No, you.
We farm near Arthur, Ontario, about an hour northwest of Toronto. We're kind of a mixed farm. We have sheep and beef and a bit of veal. And then we have a custom trucking operation, and Jen works out in a few other sideline little businesses. So life's pretty busy around here. We have 4 kids and it's kind of full schedule.
Lots going on.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Yeah, I'm sure. So let's start in with, we know you guys synchronize your flock. So when did you start synchronizing and why? What was the reason behind that decision?
So we got into the sheep in 2011. We started with a small flock of, I think it was 25 ewes or something like that. And within a year we doubled, and it was all totally manageable. But we both worked out at the time, and our first daughter was born in 2012. So life starts picking up. At the same time, Jen was working at the University of Guelph in the research barns, and they were synchronizing sheep, and did a synchronization and then an induction program that they were utilizing there. So when we started lambing out bigger groups of sheep here at home, we were finding it was too hectic, too busy. We couldn't be everywhere, couldn't get everything done the way we wanted. We're a first generation farm, being that we started with rental properties and like totally grassroots. Like we started with 9 cows originally and built from there. So it's a little bit different perspective when you don't have anybody to help you out or anything
Or a farm to go back to.
Or anything. So life kind of gets real.
Right.
So for us, to manage the flock the way to the standards that we were after and what we wanted to and what we needed to achieve profitability, we needed to do something different. So Jen brought this tool home from work, and that's where we started utilizing it. It wasn't anything new to us, like nothing we made up. It was we mentors in the industry that helped us out. So yeah.
When you synchronize, there's busy times and slow times. So at work, we would lamb 5 times a year, and then there would be the off months would be slow times. So then I'm like, why don't I pick up at home when we're slow at work and offset it? So that's what we did. We had the opposite cycle.
So we were able to coordinate 2 flocks
at the same time
to be able to lamb at 2 different places.
Yeah, well, lucky for you, Jen. That sounds like you're always lambing.
Yes. I like it. I like it a lot.
Oh, good.
Oh,
I don't think you should have sheep if you don't like lambing, really.
That's true.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, and I've always kind of wondered, every other sector, dairy industry and the hog industry, and, chickens, they're milking, they're hatching, they're calving, they're farrowing sows every day of the year. And, that's just part of the job. And I kind of think the sheep industry can move towards that. We have the ability to. So our consumers eat all year round. So why not produce for them year round?
Yep. Good thinking. So for anybody who's sort of new to synchronization, can you walk us through the process, like the products that you use, the timing of those products, just so that we're all sort of on the same page talking about the same thing?
So there's kind of 2 different systems to synchronizing sheep. just using MGA, which is a feed additive.
Mhm.
And that's not something that we actually haven't ever used. I think it's a little bit cheaper, but you need to be kind of diligent on your timing when you're feeding it.
It takes more labor.
And it takes a little bit more labor. And so that not really an option for us because we're working off farm and out and about. So we've used seeders for quite a few years. We use a 14-day seeder program. So we insert the seeder. The seeder stops the ewe from cycling. We leave that in for 14 days. And then when we pull the seeder, we inject a shot of PMSG. And then 24 hours later, we'll induce our rams. We try and have a 5-to-1 ratio. We'll use a bit of data and see what our previous history is on our rams conceptions.
That's out of season.
Yeah, out of season. Well, year.
Yeah.
We'll find some mature rams can cover more ewes, and that's where data comes. But younger rams, they're inexperienced. So we'll even cut them a new ram. We'll cut them back to a 3-to-1 ratio, just to be sure we get coverage. It depends if you want to do an induced lambing. We leave our rams in for a 4-day cycle, and then pull them back out. So we have a really tight breeding window. But you could also leave them in for a 28 or 34-day, kind of whatever to catch 2 natural heat cycles off that same synchronization. So you'll kind of get 2 waves of lambing coming through, which is kind
But you guys only target the one.
Yes, we target the one usually. Yeah. So for us, we're limited in lambing barn space. Our lambing barn holds kind of 80 to 100 ewes nicely. So due to infrastructure, we can turn that group. So we were doing lambings basically every 2 months and weaning in 50 days. So you can kind of get them lambed out, get those lambs going, weaned, and then bring another group in then a week later and start the next group again. So
it was an all in, all out system.
Yeah, so we could really maximize our efficiency through our facilities because we're tight for space. So
yeah.
Well,
I guess
another big advantage.
When you go perfectly into it. Can you share a bit more about those efficiencies, even like in which you use synchronization and like the efficiency in the way you handle labor, but both hired and your own?
So when you have a schedule, you can kind of expect lambings to come. And in the past, we've actually used students, vet students from the University of Guelph will come out, and you kind of have an idea when you can plan to have them out because you should have a flood of lambs. So it's the ability, or when they're going to lamb, so you can get a babysitter for your kids or whatever. You can plan for that. You can cancel your family parties and stay on lamb sheep.
I'll look at the calendar and I'll look and see what long weekends are coming up or Christmas, right? And then you can plan around that too. I don't know. It just works with life.
So when we do our breedings, we always work backwards. So we pick our lambing date and then we work backwards to our breeding and then schedule it that way, I guess.
So I'm still new to the sheep world, so I do apologize if this is one of those simple questions, but so is it really that down to a T in terms of how like you really can just pinpoint the day? Because like with women, obviously it can, you kind of have a ballpark, but is it really that down to a science for sheep?
No.
Okay. Oh, good. It wasn't a simple question. Okay. Woo!
It's always pretty close, but the reality is you're still dealing with nature.
Right.
We're still working alongside nature, and nature kind of throws its corkscrews into things. Even between flocks, different genetic profiles will have different gestation periods.
Different breeds will have
different breeds. So, so you're gonna have to figure that out for your own flock. I would say things are all within 10 days, but every flock's gonna vary. Okay. And then I think even in the seasons, it'll vary a little bit too.
So it was kind of neat when we lambed out and we had different crosses. I would write down the gestation days of the different crosses. So if there were a terminal cross, like an Ile-de-France or a Suffolk, they would obviously go longer and they wouldn't
respond.
Yeah, respond to the induction. Whereas like a Rito might go before you induce them. So it's really breed dependent.
Yeah.
So what is the makeup of your flock then?
So we're getting to be a higher percentage of Rideau right now, and Tefron, which is another crossbred. But high percentage of Rideau, and we tend to be lamb out on day 145.
Okay. And what are your genetic goals? Like, why? I assume that you're going for prolificacy, but what are some of your other genetic goals with the crosses that you have?
Dan, you want to handle that one? Yeah.
I like the mothering ability and the milking of these ewes, the prolificacy. I like the cleanness of them. So the Tefrons have a bare breech is what they call it. They have some texel in them, so they're cleaner in the back ends, more sanitary. And then the clean face. I don't like the wool on their faces. I don't know. Yeah. It's just a cleanliness thing. Even like the wool on the bellies and stuff. I like the bare bellies so that the lambs can reach the udders. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of Dorset, but there was a lot of wool with it. And it, made complications for lambs latching and stuff. Mm-hmm. You always had to have them sheared and
And then we're also aiming to select for terminal traits, carcass scores, low fat scores. We found when we had a lot of the Dorset and that it was hard to get the lambs up to weight without having too much fat on them. But our buyers were not happy, and we got to keep them happy.
Some information back, right, on the on how your lambs grade out in the program that you're on.
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah.
And so how has that helped you sort of zero in on your genetics? So
when having the data of our own kind of helped. So our initial find was the first found how it was one ram battery or one ram that was actually throwing fat lambs.
Wow.
So you could follow family lines and
so we
select or deselect.
Called that one ram. It actually straightened up our carcass traits quite a bit. We started sourcing rams and genetics from producers who have put an emphasis on, loin scanning and carcass traits, loin eyes and such. And that's made a huge difference on the cutout. And
so we brought genetics in that way from Canada, but we also brought some in from New Zealand too. So they're ultrasounding and they're doing all those measurements over there. And we had a lot more genetics to pick from over there.
Yeah. So it's kind of anecdotal, but I think it works. It's kind of showing that fat's not really an issue for our flock anymore. We can hit heavy carcass weights and I'm not really worried about it. So
that's so cool.
That's fantastic. Jen, you've probably had some good experience then with sort of managing and measuring. So in what ways have you measured your lamb survival outcomes with both synchronized and natural exposures?
Well, with the synchronized flocks, you're there when you need to be there. So if a ewe is having an issue, you're there to help her. You can only spend so much time with your sheep, I guess. So when we synchronized, we were down to like 4%, depending on the number of ewes we were lambing out. So if you had a smaller number like 40, you could get down to nothing, really. Like if everything was lined up nice. And then as you had more numbers, then that number would climb.
I would say on our natural lambings, 10 to 15% is not really out of the question. And I think you got to be prepared. You're going to have some lambings where you hit 25%. The storm's going to come someday and every producer is going to experience it. And it's just a reality. So.
Wow.
So, what do you feel are some of the positive impacts on lamb survival with synchronization that's been for your operation?
When you synchronize the ewes, it's not just about the lambing. We find that the lambs are all, like, I guess I should start back before they lamb. When you have to booster them or vaccinate them, they're all due at the same time. So you target that right time. When they're born, you're there when you need to be. When you're starting lambs on bottles, they're all the same age. So you don't have mixed matched pens of different sizes and different ages. So when you go to vaccinate those lambs, they're all the same age. When you go to wean them, they're all the same age. When you weigh them, when you ship them, and then even carrying on into the breeding, like if you keep a group of ewe lambs, they're all the same age. So you expose them all at the same time. And if somebody's not fit in that group, then see you later.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And when you're lambing, your mind is in lambing mode. And when you're walking through the barn, your ears are kind of tuned for it. You're kind of expecting stuff. You usually got all the tools available. They're all out ready. The colostrum bag is kind of sitting there. Like if you need to top stuff up, you're kind of ready for it. And for myself, I find those lambs that drop in between, they don't get as much attention, and they're hard to force yourself. You're busy with something else, and they don't get the same attention as those tight lambing windows.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Efficiencies. It's all about efficiency when you're there in your time.
Yeah, and I think when you're lambing, whether you're lambing 5 or you're lambing 100 in a synchronized group, you're there anyway, so you may as well be busy.
Yeah, true.
With our induced lambing program that we did, the biggest we've done, we've lambed about 86 ewes in one day. And it would be, but the kids went, they went off to family members for the weekend, and we were just in the barn, and all we had to focus on was lambing. Like we were planned for it.
Yeah.
So your mind's in the right place, and you order some pizzas and lamb out sheep.
Yeah, we took shifts, and
you share the workload, and so it works for us anyway. So
are there other risks or threats that synchronization has helped to reduce in your operation, or are there other benefits to synchronization? I'm thinking about like nutritionally or catching other sort of health issues.
Yeah, so like Jen was saying before, the ability to have your sheep vaccinated at the time, start your flush programs, because what you'll see on it, if you have a total natural lambing, quite often the lambs that come on the tail end, you have more dystocia and lambing problems because those ewes have been overfed for a lot longer, on their close-up ration. So now you get these big lambs coming out. So it's easier to target feed when you have a tighter lambing window.
And we saw that with collecting data. If I look over the birth weights of a lambing group, naturally versus synchronized, you can see the birth weights go up on the same genetics, the same feed, right? So it's neat to see some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. Have there been any downsides to synchronizing your sheep? Cost? Is cost an issue?
Yeah, so cost is definitely an issue. To us, I offset cost to labor. So you're gonna have to pay me now, pay me later. So you have to wrap your head around it one way or another. Breeding percentage.
Conception rates.
Like conception rates. Often we'll see you'll probably average out around the 70s, between 70 and 80% annually. So there's definitely a trade-off there. But there again, you're trading off your time versus off that expense. One thing I did notice was lambing in an induced system, you're there to help. And I kind of think you have to learn to back off and let the ewes do stuff themselves. Because if you coddle them, they'll kind of get used to that and they'll expect that. And I found our ewes kind of got soft. Like we weren't necessarily making them do the job, and then they just kind of wait for you to help them out. So that was definitely a reality. Like we learned later, like as you get more sheep around and you can't be helping them, it can kind of bite you in the butt. So you have to be mindful of that let the ewes do what they know how to do, and because they do know how to do it. And I don't know what anything is, I guess.
Disease pressure, I guess. With induced lambing, we would clean out right before, so they all had a clean bed to lamb out in. And then we would clean out right after we were done. So all that lambing placenta and fluids and stuff was gone, and they had a clean start to start life. Like, yeah. So it was more sanitary again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the ewes that don't catch, do they get a second shot? Do they just go into the next group?
Yeah, so we just dropped them into our next group. So we were doing a group every 2 months. So they just fell back to our next group. And quite often you look at those ewes and there'd be a reason why they didn't catch. If you look in the records, they had a hard lambing, or maybe body condition score wasn't quite where it needed to be, and stuff like that.
They had multiples last time. Yeah.
So nature was kind of telling you that they needed some time anyway. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
You just work with them.
So we would just kind of overbreed. If we wanted 80 ewes to lamb out, we would, just try expose a few more. We'd usually do 120 or something, and
yeah, that makes sense.
Go to the barn. So, but yeah, you do. It does cost you. You have to pay for those extra cedars.
Another cost would be having extra rams around, and you're feeding them all the time too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And different lines, like with all the extra rams, you want different lines too. So that was another cost.
Yeah. There's so much going on that I can understand why someone would choose synchronization, because in the synchronization, there's still so many unknowns and so much multitasking. Like air traffic controller, you're trying to control this while simultaneously here. It sounds super stressful. So if you can organize it in any way, I can definitely understand why you would want to.
Yeah. And I think you have to remember, it's just another tool in the toolbox.
Right.
It's not the only way. It's not the be all end all. It's just another tool. And there's so many different ways to do lambing, and they all work.
Right.
So this is just another way. And it's worked for us to get us through kind of coined as no man's land, right? When there's too much work and not enough cash and not enough time. So get you over that hump. So
I guess another disadvantage would be there's more labor at breeding time, because you're sorting all your sheep into different groups. You're running them through the chute twice to cedar and pull cedars. Whereas when you're naturally exposing them, you're probably just throwing some rams out in a breeding pen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
So how do you both deal with mental health surrounding, well, it's just in general, this is a very labor intensive situation, it sounds, for someone who doesn't own sheep, but specifically around mortalities, because we often hear people say that mortalities are a big contributor to lowered mental health during lambing. And so has synchronization changed the way you personally perceive or internalize the lamb mortalities?
So I think the mental health aspect is definitely real, but I think we have to be accountable to our own decisions. When we buy sheep and we commit to breeding sheep, mortality is part of it. It's part of what you signed up for. And I think you need to be aware of that, whenever you breed your sheep, that's something you're gonna have to deal with. And
even the time of year that you breed too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of flocks that shouldn't lamb in the winter. They don't have facilities for it, and they can't manage it. So let's work with nature. Let's lamb in the spring. Let's find different systems that actually that can work with us. And I think you have to be accountable to your own decisions. So,
so when we lambed in the colder months, we were there when we needed to be. Like there was no lamb that didn't get colostrum in time, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, you can't be there all the time when you're lambing over a month or two.
Yeah. So I think as an industry, we need to kind of give some pushback sometimes that people need to make the right decisions. You can't really make some poor decisions and be begging for sympathy all the time. And you know what? We've had some bad lambings. We've had some 25% mortality lambings. And if you haven't had one of those yet, just wait, because it's going to come. And it's a reality of the sheep business, and it sucks. And you don't want to go back to the barn, but you persevere through that and push through that. And you find some mentors to help you out and talk it through, and you'll roll through it, and the next lambing will be better. But it's definitely because you're going to learn from it too. So, and that's just part of the lamb business, I guess. So.
Yeah. So, for somebody getting started with synchronizing sheep, what advice would you give to somebody who's just getting started? Talking to people, it sounds like having a mentor is important. What else is important when you're just getting started?
So I would say you need a sheep vet, not just any vet. You need a vet that knows sheep. From what I hear is a lot of people, they'll go to their local vet, which is great, but they'll try and give them a cow program, and they're not cows, they're sheep. So find something specific, and your advice is usually quite a bit different. I think finding a mentor or somebody in the industry that's doing it that you can text at 10 o'clock at night and pop your questions off to, that's pretty helpful. And there's tons of them around. I don't think there's a sheep farmer out there that wouldn't answer your call if they could. So it's pretty cool industry that way.
We were part of was it a research project? We were part of a group that all did synchronizing, and there was different ways and different hormones, I guess, that they used. And it was neat to compare with other flocks that did it.
Yeah. So finding out what works in different flocks, and so if you find somebody that's similar to you. And then I think you just got to try it. A lot of people are too afraid to try new things. Maybe try a small group and see how it works out for you. You don't necessarily have to stay with it forever. You might try one group and say it's not for you, or it is for you. And yeah, just another tool in the toolbox to try. So I think having the confidence just to try something new is pretty important.
Yeah, well, that's a really great way to end the interview, Chris. And Jen, thanks so much for all your insights. We really appreciate you being on the podcast, and thanks so much for your time.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of Flock Talk, please subscribe through your podcast app to receive alerts to our future episodes. And please share our podcast with your friends.
For more Ontario Sheep Farmers content, follow us on social media under the handle @Ontario Sheep Farmers on Instagram and Facebook, and visit our website, ontariosheep.org, for more resources.